indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need to make the announcement that this meeting is being recorded and televised by our local cable company. That being said, I'd like to have a moment of silence, and during the moment of silence, if you can keep in your thoughts Lucille Gregory, who is the mother of Michelle McNulty, our town's attorney. I need an approval of bill and payroll warrants.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. I need a motion to accept the correspondence in the read file.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Anybody here wish to speak in public forum on anything that's not on the agenda? Nobody here? Approval of meeting minutes, open session, March 6th, 2016.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? New business, monthly reports from the police department. Chief.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief.
So the monthly report, it's that time again. You should have, I'm sure you got the documentation, so follow along, I guess, as they say, right? Logged calls for January 1st, 2016 to April 10th were 3,753. This time last year, we had 2,895, which is a difference of 858. We're up. Arrests, criminal complaints, and protective custodies as of the April 10th, we're at 118. Drug overdoses are at 11 through April 10th. There have been 2 fatal overdoses out of the 11. And last year at this time, we had 12. We were doing pretty good in January, but we had a presentation, the Whitman will presentation last week, and that, right after the presentation, we had 3 overdoses that evening, 1 fatal. And 2 days later, one of the persons that overdosed that night overdosed in the morning on Wednesday. So 4 overdoses in like a 2-day period and one repeat person. It's sad, but it illustrates certainly that this is a problem that we're facing and that we're going to continue to tackle. And you have to show compassion. It's a big, I think one of the big misnomers, and of course, when you come off of heroin, you get sick. So people don't want to get sick, so they're on heroin too, in addition to the addiction itself. So it's a twofold thing, and it's something to think about because, truly, this epidemic is there but for the grace of God go I. Everybody, I don't know anybody that isn't touched in one way or another by this. So, to the people, there's a thought process. Well, geez, you're saving these people. Well, you know what? What would you give to hug your child again? That's simple as I can put it. If you look at it that way with that empathy, you understand that you'd do anything. So if we save them 100 times, we save them 100 times. That's the way it goes. They're trying. It's one day at a time, and something traumatic or something happens in their life, and this is what you're dealing with. But the presentation itself, even what Kathy Sullivan did with regards to her daughter Taylor, who drowned in 2008 in about 2 feet of water from binge drinking out in the woods in Plainville. It's choices, and she talked about co-parenting together and being in communication with each other and working together instead of, because like she said, there are people that don't want to say anything because they don't want to be like, quote unquote, ratting out your kid. Well, you know what? Rat them out.
Save a life.
Yep. So, you know, there was a lot of good things that come out of it, and there are a lot of great kids out there, you know, but this is something that we're dealing with, and there's something to be aware of, is it starts somewhere else, you know, the binge drinking and then to the marijuana or whatever it is, and then eventually to the opioids. We also have a Plymouth County task force, and I was just at a meeting Friday, and it looks like it was hosted by Sheriff McDonald, and I believe ADA Cruz is also going to join, you know, jump on board on this. So we're looking to collect right now through our web task force, and Lieutenant Conley submits the statistics for us for our overdoses. We're looking to have all of this information countywide, on a countywide level, and that's what we're meeting. We're trying to bring in hospitals and different organizations to help, to say, hey, we have a bed, or we can get them this, or we can get them that. So this DataViz is a software company that it looks like through funds between the sheriff and the DA's office, they're going to buy a base for this for all of Plymouth County Police. And then we'll all be able to kind of a la carte, because there's some other things in that software that is pretty good information to have as a manager, that you can plug in afterwards, because the initial cost of like $5,000 a pop is going to be absorbed by the DA and by the sheriff. And what that will give us is we'll be able to talk countywide, and I believe right now it looks like we'll be the first county to do this, Plymouth County, which is really good. Chief Mix from Hanson, Chief Boteri's a big driving force in this. He has quite a task force set up to Plymouth, and so he's been really big with Beth Israel Deaconess down there and stuff. So it's good. You know, you'd be surprised when you look at you know, we'll have Whitman residents that overdose somewhere else, and we have no idea. We can now offer, you know, we'll get that, you know, this will lead to us getting all that information and being able to offer help and follow-up. The mock crash for the prom will be sometime in May. That's been put off a couple of times. I'll let you know. They haven't set up a definitive date yet for it, so once I get that, though, I'll let you know. Chief Greno and I met with Pat Dillon, who's the Assistant Superintendent of Operations at the high school, to go over, we also were there with the chief from, Chief Mix and Chief Thompson from Hanson to go over crisis plans for the schools. We're looking at logistical things, you know, reunification and where would we go, and set up different things. So it's something that you at least have to be looking at and have on the radar. Because, you know, I really think probably it's not a matter of if, it's when. And so, you know, the more you go over it, the more prepared you'll be. For us, we currently have one officer out IOD. We have 2 officers out sick right now. And we just had an officer return from surgery, and we have another one who's going to be going out the 26th for some surgery. And I'd just like to thank, you know, we had the baseball parade, baseball softball parade went off well, you know, without a hitch. So I'd just like to thank the members of the police department, the men and women of the department and the auxiliary unit for all that they do for the town. And that's all I have.
Okay, does everybody have any questions of the chief?
Oh, good summary, thanks, Scott.
I have only one question. Scott, have you passed out, have we distributed those policies on alcoholic, you know, that we did the last meeting?
Not yet. No,
Not
I
yet?
haven't.
Just waiting for that?
I haven't, yeah.
Okay,
I'm sure once they're finalized, Frank will just call me and we'll do it.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Laura's working on them now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you get the final update on this? Okay, so we'll have to
Another thing.
incorporate those.
Well, the fire chief's not here, and his assistant's not here, so maybe we'll wait till next meeting, we can give it then. Discuss passport services, Frank.
Well, actually, we had the passport.
Ooh, yes.
I'm glad you said that. I was going to use a different word.
expert.
Mary Beth Carter?
Just by way of information, the town of Whitman joined a number of towns several years ago, probably 9 years ago, maybe even 10, to participate in assisting people with applying for passports. We accept the applications, we scrutinize the information, we witness their signing, and then we send it into the State Department for investigation and issuance. It is a labor-intensive process. It involves a bit of time with the people applying, particularly when you have a family, and most particularly when you have a large family. This passport service originated with the clerk's office, and then when the Department of State determined that it was an inherent conflict for the office issuing birth certificates to assist in issuing passports, that service was moved over with the cooperation and enthusiasm of the treasurer collector to assist in continuing this program. It seems since that time to have grown a bit. We have 2 employees plus the manager who works in both offices, serving the public at the collector's window. And on passport hours, it gets very crowded. And it becomes very difficult for the folks that are there to complete their work. Mary Beth has noted this, and we've talked about it a couple of times. And most recently, we explored whether or not we had another department who could pick up this service, because it is interfering with her ability to serve the public in her role as town collector. And I would imagine people coming in to pay, looking at a long line and getting behind someone getting 5 passports is going to get just a little bit irked by the process. And they've done an admirable job of managing that. But you can't start a passport acceptance and then stop it, take a payment, go back, stop it and take a payment. So it does cause significant problems there. Mary Beth will fill you in on her observations and experience. And my recommendation, unless we have another place to send this, is to discontinue the service.
Thank you. The Collector's Office was asked to take over as a passport facility in fiscal year 2011, when it was determined that the clerk's offices would no longer be able to issue passports due to the fact that they also were able to issue birth certificates, as Frank mentioned. Since that time, the Treasurer Collector's Office has served as a passport facility for the Department of State and has offered passport hours for 7.5 hours per week on Tuesday evenings and Wednesday and Thursday mornings. Last federal fiscal year, the Treasurer Collector's Office processed over 600 passports. The number of passport applications we processed has increased each year, and according to the Department of State, it is expected that an even greater amount of passport applications will be processed both next year and the year after. A passport application takes approximately 15 to 20 minutes to complete, and we have processed up to 24 passport applications in one Tuesday evening. And that's a lot in 2.5 hours. We pull people down from the treasurer's up, close the treasurer's office, so it's at times can be quite a bit. Many times, taxpayers have unfortunately had to wait a few minutes longer than usual to pay a bill while passport agents handled passport applications. A large amount of the passport applications we process are for non-Whitman residents. Due to the volume of traffic in the collector's office, or that the collector's office handles on a daily basis, it has become burdensome to also continue the passport function. While I feel this is a positive service for the town to offer, I feel that our primary responsibility is to handle the inquiries and payments from the residents of Whitman. My plan is for the Treasurer Collector's Office to remain as a passport facility through the end of the calendar year. I was hoping that we would be able to find another department willing to take over this function as we did back in 2011. If this is possible, I would like to transition this function as of July 1st and have the Treasurer Collector Passport agents, and there are 5 of us, serve as backup to answer any questions and assist the new department through the end of the calendar year. And that's when our certifications will expire. We have to renew every year. And I would like to either find another department to take over or just end as of this calendar year and not renew.
What are the qualifications for them, for another department to take it over?
Well,
Well,
go
it
ahead,
isn't
Frank.
qualifications, it's, you have to have the basic ability to scan an application and ask questions, administer an oath, and have people sign it. The bigger challenge is simply the time element.
Right.
Being able to devote the time. What happens is people walk in with an application that they cannot sign till they're there. They have to bring in their birth certificate, they have to bring in their other identifying information. The passport agent has to review each of these things with the people, go over administer the oath that they sign on the passport application stating everything is true and correct. We have to deal with pictures and how they're placed on the document. There's a very specific routine for putting the package together. Everything has a spot. These things are bulk scanned in the thousands on heavy machinery. I mean, they go right through a scanner with the staples and pictures and everything on them. So the process has to be exact.
What's the fee? What are we charging?
$20, $25.
$25, $10 for pictures, $25 for the application.
So what did the town collect in fees last
Thought
year?
you might ask that. Year-to-date this year, we have taken in $13,025 for applications and $4,160 in photos, for a total of $17,185. Last fiscal year, we took in a total of $19,270 in revenue.
What isn't apparent in those numbers is the cost of the materials and, more importantly, the cost of mailing. What does it cost to mail now?
That's about six something, I think it's up to now, $645 for the,
$645 a package. They all have to be sent with trackable mailing. So these are expenses that
Are
are
not covered by the
coming out of the general fund.
Is
while
that a
this
set
money's
fee?
going
You're
in.
not allowed to charge more than that
Correct.
now?
and excuse me, Frank, we don't charge for the applications or any of that, just the postage.
What would happen if we just did Whitman residents only?
Can't,
Can't.
No.
you can't restrict your
Wow.
acceptance.
Gee, I know another department that has cameras and they can take fingerprints and stuff like that. He's not paying attention.
It'll be an hour a week.
And if they lie on the application, I know where they can put them. I'm like, kidding.
You ever dealt with those guys before? Forget it.
Dan, when they're taking pictures, they're not jolly.
Yes, Brian.
Are there any other places around in town that do this service? Other banks or nobody
No.
does it? besides-
Usually it's post offices
Isn't
and,
the post office do it?
right,
Not our
not
post
Whitman,
office.
Brockton does.
Oh, Brockton does, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In East Bridgewater, it's a veterans agent, it's appointment only. West Bridgewater, the treasurer collector was going to try it, and then he was going to cut it down to just 2 or 3 hours, and he said, I didn't even do it, we're too busy. So, different towns, when the clerk's offices, had to cease, this process, a lot of towns couldn't find anybody, and some did, some didn't, but,
This might be a nice little small business for a town to get into in Whitman. If they want to do something on the side, if they have some,
Well, you
some
have
spare
to,
time.
you have to be, I believe you have to be a government agency of
Really?
some sort.
and then there's
In order
training
to
as well. You're
handle
sent
that.
into Boston for
So I mean,
training.
somebody like,
You
Could
can't,
do it in
you can't say,
Duval's
I'm
or-
gonna be Joe's Easy Passport
Right, no.
Service.
Dan's.
too bad.
It's not a joke.
Dan's. Dan's Laser Passport
There you go.
Service.
All right. Well,
So-
hopefully you'll be able to find another alternative rather than just canceling it, but if it has to
Right.
be, it has to be.
We have looked at another option. I don't have an answer on that yet, but if that is not a go, then we have to recognize what we're here for and who we serve.
It's too
Yeah,
bad.
it's a nice service to provide.
I know, it is.
It is.
It's a shame, but first of all, the numbers don't make sense.
Well, we didn't think it was gonna grow that quickly when they started the service here, and all of a sudden, it blossomed out of control.
Because before,
Man,
all
we
the
don't-
clerk's offices did it.
Right.
And then they stopped, and so in some towns, there's nobody,
Somebody out
so,
of the clerk's office and reassign them.
That's an interesting thought.
I mean, if they're not doing the work anymore,
Well, they
that
can't.
they were doing, but.
They'd have, no, they're part of the clerk.
They'll no longer be part of the clerk.
unfortunately, right, if they're part of the clerk's office where they issue birth certificates,
So
they're
we-
unable
So we'll
to.
reassign them, so that's all they're doing is.
There you go,
passports.
there's an option.
Unless we hire a part-timer to do it.
Moving on.
I see what that means. Another thought. All right, well, we'll see what happens in the future. We'll go from there.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, old business, personnel policy and procedures, to discuss the health and life insurance through acknowledgement of policy.
Okay, that would be the information I emailed to everybody.
Yeah,
The changes were highlighted in the email. They were minimal. There were just a couple of reference points made, but most of it was punctuation and language.
so you need a motion to accept it?
So once you make a motion to accept that, the policy is complete in its infancy, and it will be sent to town council for further review.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Set next, our meeting for, May. It's listed here, May 2nd, which is the night of town meeting.
Right.
And will only adjourn if the town meeting ends. If it doesn't, if it goes another day, we'll stay in session. May 10th and May 24th. Does that work for everybody? And the May 2nd, is that at 6:30, Frank? Town meeting is at what, 7?
Town meeting is at 7:30, so
Oh, so
usually we
7.
meet at 7.
7, okay, same time. Okay,
Should be a quick one this year.
all right.
Yeah. Actually, I spoke to Attorney McNulty today. As you know, she'd been out for bereavement for a week and a half. And we talked a little bit about town meeting, and she said, "Can we do it in one night?" I said, "From your lips to God's ears, but I don't think it's going to happen."
All right. I will wait and see, you never know. All right, and here, that it? Oh, around the board, Frank.
I have two things, actually. First item, Chief Benton forwarded to us a police log report of a fight that occurred at O'Toole's.
Yeah.
I want to recognize that the police department were promptly notified, did go out and handle the situation, and I want to recognize that O'Toole's did what they should have done and what we expected them to do.
Excellent.
Yeah, I read that report. It was very thorough, and it seemed like they did what they were supposed to.
So, and now because you gave me a little time to think, I can't remember what the second thing was.
Well, we'll get back to you then. Think about it. All right, Scott, do you have anything?
Nothing.
Lisa?
I have nothing to add.
Brian?
Just a small note, this Friday, the 22nd is Earth Day, and I know that sometimes there's celebrations and different things around different towns about park cleanups and things like that, but I have two small dogs, and I walk them, and I usually bring a bag with me for the reason that they walked them. And if I see trash around, I try to pick it up and take it with me. But if everybody in our town just walked their street and picked up the trash, and we all complain and we see nip bottles, cigarette butts, plastic bags, things like that. Seems like on social media there's a lot of complaining, but if we acted and took responsibility for our town, I think it would look a lot better. So being Friday Earth Day, I just figured I'd remind everybody to pick it up.
I can't wait for Friday. Thank you. Frank, did you remember?
Yeah, two other items. I met Friday with the city of Brockton, along with Matt Tobin, and Ralph Richardson, and we have made progress. We also have noted that based on how we've defined the expenditures that will be billed to the town, the impact won't be as great as we initially thought. The appropriations we're seeking in the special town meeting may even be reduced before we go on the floor with it. The other item is, I want to remind everyone that the annual town meeting warrant is awaiting signatures. If you haven't signed it, it's downstairs to be signed. That warrant will be posted this week, and then both will be put up on the web so people can view the requests. The general budget, Article 2, is still in its analysis phase. The Finance Committee is meeting next Tuesday for another review of those general budget articles. But if you look at last year's and use around 2.8 to 3% estimate as a guideline, that's where it's going to fall. The big numbers, of course, are related to school increases. So we should have that. Typically, that is prepared. We're working on it right till the last minute, so we may still be working it on the Friday before town meeting.
Wow.
But as soon as it's complete, we'll post it. And of course, it'll be available for people to view when they come in to vote.
Okay, is that it? Okay, I need a motion to go in.
I have
Yes.
one question for
Okay.
Frank. You brought up the meeting with the Brockton Water. I read that they were contemplating fluoride additives to the water, and I was wondering if we had any say in that possibility with the fact that fluoride has now been labeled as a neurotoxin, and
It's interesting.
I think it's probably not a great idea.
We can certainly voice our concern, but we have no say in how the plant is operated. And that's, by the way, that's the sewer plant. The water side, under the applicable statutes, we draw water from Silver Lake through Brockton, and I know at times it's coming elsewhere, but the statute provides that Whitman has the right to draw water from Silver Lake. It goes to Brockton, and we pay Brockton for the cost of treating that water. What has evolved over the years is they've entered into contracts for the purchase of water, and it affects our rate, and in my opinion, it shouldn't. I've voiced that opinion many times to the Public Works Commission, that the statute is clear in what it provides for Whitman to receive from the city. But, well, right now they're paying for water and not drawing it, and then that cost is passed on to us. We don't really have any alternative because we have no other reliable water source to provide for the town. And if you think we're expensive, take a look at the MWRA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe, well, our water department, they test the water a couple of times a day, right?
At least, I
Right,
would say.
and they test it, and I'm
Yes.
certainly sure that
Yeah,
if in fact that they find that there's too many chemicals in it or whatever,
well, the fluoride, it's a big,
Fluoride,
a
right.
big,
It's a big argument
big
about
argument
fluoridation,
about
right?
fluoridation. And in fact, the water report, I think just came out in the last week or two for here, that they do once a year, I think, for the previous year. And, you know, it's something that it is not, from what I understand, Brockton is just, this came up years ago as well, but they, it's kind of resurfaced, and they're talking about it again, and it definitely has some ill effects, I believe. So
Right,
I was just hoping that we had a say in the.
Well, it's
in the
interesting
decision.
when you listen to the comments that are made by members of the city council, because this is a hot topic there. And the primary focus seems to be their belief that this fluoridation is needed to provide for children who otherwise would not be provided with good health habits. And, yeah, That's a tough argument, but you have to
Yeah.
look at the whole picture.
Right. Okay, thanks.
That's something that the commissioners are really gonna have to look at.
Yeah.
Okay, I need a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A1, to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than the professional competence of an individual, and 3, to discuss the strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, as the chair so declares. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Yes.
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 We'll be coming into open session just to adjourn only. Thank you.